Hi friends, Prepared Suburbanite here, back after somewhat of an extended absence from YouTube. I deliberately took some time off from producing videos on YouTube. I've been having a standing feud, I guess, with Google and YouTube about content and about the tools that our creators are using. The whole, we'll get into maybe a little bit later on, but I'd like to say thanks to the loyal folks that have sent me numerous messages asking if everything's okay. And let me just assure you that everything is okay. We did have a little bit of a setback about a month or so ago when my wife lost her brother. He had a massive heart attack, and we had to go to Pennsylvania to help take care of some of the arrangements, go to the funeral, visit with family and all that, and we were up there for a while. I'm going to miss him. He was really the brother that I never had. Really a great guy, U.S. Marine through and through all his life. Just a terrific guy. But that's not why I was away from YouTube for such a period of time. A lot of things to catch you up on, so stick around. So first things first, this is where our garden is. Today's July the 3rd, the day before Independence Day, 2018, and just wanted to have you take a peek at the garden and how much progress it's made so far this season. We've got yarrow, that's the white plants there. We got some sort of weird ball flower that my wife thought was really kind of cute, so we got that going. We got squash growing in here. Our grapes are over there. We've got blackberries growing in this hedge right here. Cucumbers coming in here. We've already pulled, I think, 3 or 4 cucumbers out of there and made a cucumber salad already, and it was very, very good. They were nice and tender and fresh. Really, really good stuff. This was the early stuff with the lettuce and spinach. Rabbits got into most of it, and that's pretty much gone, but that tall stuff down there is dill. That's the first time I've had any luck growing dill. Every time I've tried it, it just gets about 6 inches tall and then just dies, but this group has really come in great. Our tomatoes are just absolutely incredible. We didn't plant them as close together as we have had in the past, so we only put like 6 plants in each 4-foot by 8-foot bed, and I think that allows them a lot more space, a lot more productivity. Still got a little problem with a couple of the local squirrels around here stealing stuff, but not as bad as in years past. There's the other bed of tomatoes there, and another bed of tomatoes there. There's a couple of plants down in that very first original one. That was our very first 4-foot by 8-foot bed that we put in about 5, 6, 7 years ago, and just been feeding it compost, and the soil stays nice and good. Going to have a really good crop, I'm sure, of tomatoes this year. Really looking forward to getting them ready, getting them canned up, making spaghetti sauce, and making salsa and all kinds of stuff. We got green beans growing in here, and they're coming along very good. Our fruit trees are just growing crazy. I got to get in and trim those things back, but they have really started sprouting up here. They were just little nubs, maybe 3-4 foot tall when we planted them a number of years ago. We've got, let's see, oh yeah, blueberries. they're getting ready down here. Let's see if I can zoom in a little bit and see if we can't find some berries. Yep, right in there. Should be able to see a few of the berries. Not a whole lot. We only ended up with one plant surviving out of the 4 we put in. But other than that, the garden's doing really good. Got some peppers growing over there, potatoes in that next little bed. So I think we've got our garden, so we're going to have a fairly good turnout, fairly good harvest this year. So on to the second update. Second update is our new garden shed. All completed, all done. Don't have to worry about it anymore. Got the flags up in anticipation of the 4th of July holiday. I built the wooden plaque flag up there a couple weeks ago. Turned out really, really nice. I think it's going to be a nice little addition to the shed. And everything seemed to come together pretty well. A while ago I did a video on the perils of aging, and I think one of the things that I may have forgotten to mention was that as we get older, our ability to do things like applying roof shingles diminishes over time. I had a contractor friend of mine come in and put the roof shingles on, but everything else was put together by my lovely wife and me. Here's the inside, so that you can see what we've done. Got things fairly well organized in here. Got the tools hung up, they're all cleaned up. Got a little shelving units put up in the back there. Got the ladders here, chainsaw stuff over there, trimmers and all kinds of good stuff there. That big ladder's got to go back up to our bug out location so I can do some trim work up there later this year. But we were up there a little bit ago this week, and actually last week we were up and spent the night, and it was brutally hot, terrible, terrible heat. So I didn't get much work done, but with this ladder here, I can finish putting the trim around it and all that. So, but everything's rock solid in our bug out location, in our bug out shed up there. No complaints at all. But I thought you'd be interested in seeing how this all came to be. And now, because it's probably the hottest that I think I've seen it in North Carolina for such an extended period of time, we're shooting for 100 degrees, just regular temperature today. You factor in the humidity, and they're saying it's going to be 110. We shall see how hot it really gets, but I'm going to finish up this video inside. Like I said a little bit earlier while we were out in the garden, today is July 3rd, the day before Independence Day. I've seen a number of videos floating around on YouTube over the last couple of weeks with the theme being, are we headed for, or are we already in, a civil war? Well, let me tell you, I don't think it's really far from the truth anymore. The recent political nonsense that's going on in this country right now, with folks like Maxine Waters calling for the harassment of the Trump administration wherever they see them, out to dinner, at the grocery store, this or that, that they should be harassed because God is on their side and certainly not on Donald Trump's side. The calls for violence, the stuff that happened in, I think it was Portland or Seattle over last weekend, where we had Patriot Prayer Group and Antifa come to blows over the ability for that particular prayer group to hold a little rally in town and Antifa did not like it, so rocks got thrown, paintballs got thrown, all kinds of stuff was going on. It's just terrible, terrible kind of stuff. And I think I may have predicted that the left would get more and more violent over time. And I think what's been happening is that they're losing. Or maybe even better, that Donald Trump and his administration and his policies are winning. Looking at what happened at the Supreme Court over the last couple of weeks or so, it's been absolutely amazing. I made a couple of notes so I could try to make sure that I got everything that the Supreme Court's been up to as they close down this year's session. They removed the mandate for public sector unions to be able to collect agency fees from non-members of that union. The left's heads are exploding over that one because they see that it's the death knell of unions in the country and all that kind of stuff. I think the Supreme Court really made the right decision on this one because they said, wait a minute, you can't compel people under the First Amendment to participate and endorse something that they don't want to be involved in. Well, that's kind of what's going on here when non-members of a union seem to be getting with a gun to their head, basically, that they've got to pay those union dues, and those union dues all go into a big pot. Some benefits go back to a union member here and there, loss of work. If they go on strike, there may be some strike benefits, so there's a little bit of that going on, but the majority of the money that the unions collect from agency fees and from member dues goes to political contributions. And for the most part, and a majority of those political contributions are folks on the left, Democratic candidates. You don't see Republican, conservative type candidates being endorsed by unions. The second decision that came out of the Supreme Court over the last couple of weeks was that Trump's travel ban was upheld. Perfectly within his authority as the President of the United States to keep this country safe. There was no bias in there. This was not a discrimination case, according to the Supreme Court. It was upheld, saying it was perfectly legal to do, perfectly all right, and the left is just gone crazy because they believe now that the Supreme Court has been bought out by the right or something. I'm not quite sure. But the facts in the case are very simple. The president was acting within his authority as President of the United States. He identified real threats in those countries, whether they were Muslim countries or whether they weren't Muslim countries, and some of them weren't Muslim majority countries. And he said, no, we're going to tighten up, have a travel ban for an X period of time until we can rest assured that we've got the mechanisms in place to properly vet those folks that are incoming. The third thing was the religious freedom being upheld in the case of the Colorado cake maker. He was approached by a gay couple to bake a cake for their wedding. He refused. He rejected their request and said, my religious beliefs really do prevent me from using my creativity, using my skills to bake you a cake, to endorse something that I don't believe, according to my religious beliefs, is the right thing to do. So I'm going to refuse your request. The gay couple went through the Civil Rights Commission in Colorado, filed suit against him. It made its way all the way up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court actually looked at it with reason and said 7-2 not very tight, I would say, in contrary to some of the NBC headlines that said it was a very tight decision. It was 7-2. But the bottom line is that religious freedoms are guaranteed under the Bill of Rights, under our Constitution. The rights of gay people to do whatever they want to do, also upheld, even though the Supreme Court didn't really come right out and define every little minute detail. They kind of left that to the states. But the bottom line is that the religious belief was upheld to be of as equal strength to the gay rights issue. And to protect that freedom of religion, the Supreme Court said he didn't have to bake the cake. Pro-life organizations in California cannot be forced to advocate for abortions. Another case that the Supreme Court looked at and looked at hard and said, wait a minute, why should a pro-life organization be forced by a state regulation to endorse or even educate their clientele on about abortions? Pro-life groups are against abortions. The case made its way all the way to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said, no, those pro-life groups are protected. Now the left's head is exploding on that, and now they're saying that the conservatives, that the Republicans, and that the Supreme Court is basically weaponizing the First Amendment. Now, the First Amendment, I think, is a weapon in and all of itself. Bottom line is, we have a number of very distinct freedoms that have been granted not by the government but by the Almighty, and the restrictions are that the government shall pass no laws restricting those rights. Freedom of the press, freedom of religion, those kinds of things. Weaponizing, they're reaching on this one. But anyway, for the folks that don't necessarily get into the politics, the reason that I bring all this stuff up about the Supreme Court and the fact that Anthony Kennedy has just announced his retirement and he'll be officially off the bench. I think July 31st is his last day on the job. Supreme Court's not in session right now, so not quite sure what he's going to be doing except maybe getting his RV ready to do some traveling around the country. But he's done. And President Trump now has the responsibility to pick from a list of qualified jurists to sit on the Supreme Court. And the battle lines have already been drawn that the Democrats are going to try to do everything in their power to block a nomination, to not vote on it until after the midterm elections in November, to do something to disrupt the process. And I guess in a sense that could be just a get even kind of a thing because of what Mitch McConnell did to Merrick Garland and all that at the tail end of Obama's administration. But the country has to have a Supreme Court, and it has to have an odd number on the Supreme Court. We saw what happened while Gorsuch was being vetted for the position, was that there was a lot of deadlocks. There was a lot of decisions that just didn't get made that should have been made. Now, I bring all this up because tomorrow's Independence Day. We've talked about the potentials and the theories that we're in a civil war, that we could be in a civil war, that there is talk of civil war, East versus West, North versus South, Republican versus Democrat, liberal versus conservative. I don't know where the lines are going to be drawn, But I really do believe that a civil war has already taken place. All you got to do is look at the political headlines of today. This is the Prepared Suburbanite reminding you to be prepared always, and I'll see you on the next video, hopefully real soon.